Hello, my name is Aaron Marsters, and I am here today to talk about 7th and 8th grade social studies with Brian Keller, our social studies 612 ISS in Europe South, and Angelica Jordan, our ESOL ISS for Europe South. So welcome today, and we're going to go ahead and just jump right into it. I'm going to skip over to Brian, and I'd like, if you could you tell us a little bit about Pearson Realize and social studies?
All right, Pearson Realize is our learning management system for grades 7 and 8, American history. It is intended to be an all-in-one resource. So its core piece is an e-text. The e-text is the same as the students get in their hardbound book. There are a variety of additional resources contained within here, including things like flipped videos, graphic organizers, worksheets for students, things of that nature. And students can actually upload their work and send it to their teacher directly in this learning management system.
Now, if I'm a special ed teacher, does that mean the students can upload it directly to me, or does it go to their social studies teacher?
So it will go to their social studies teacher. It goes to the primary teacher, the teacher of record on the course, as it's listed in Aspen.
Okay. Now, how do special education teachers or ESOL teachers access this online resource?
Okay, so there's two different ways to access this. The first way, if you're working directly with a student, is have the student log in on their account. And so a student would log in via Schoology. As a special education teacher or an ESOL teacher, you can also use our generic login, which is directly through the Pearson Realize website. It gets you into a generic account where you can see the e-text, the resources, and things like that. The only feature limitation is that you won't be able to receive assignments directly from your students because you're in a generic account.
And then I take it that I can't direct assignments to students then as well.
Correct, because this account will be used by teachers all over the world. That's perfect.
Okay, and for those watching, for security reasons, of course, we can't post the login information within the notes or talk about it now. So please talk to your local social studies teacher or your social studies ISS for access to that. So we have logged into the Pearson Realize Social Studies site, and now we're at kind of the home screen. What do I do next?
All right, so to access the American History Grade 7 and 8 book, you're going to go ahead and click on that one in the middle with the presidents on Mount Rushmore. All right, now this is opened up into the table of contents. The table of contents looks very similar to the book. So the topics are grouped the same way, and even the same anchor image is used for easy identification purposes. So let's just jump in and look at any topic. Aaron, why don't you choose a topic that interests you?
Okay, I'm going to topic 3.
All right, topic 3, the Revolutionary War.
Correct.
So when this opens, you're going to see a wide variety of resources. So there's a brief overview introduction. It mirrors the introduction in the text. It can actually be assigned to students. There are a variety of different activities, such as project-based learning, graphic organizers that really support students helping them understand the content. A lot of those are also embedded specifically in the lessons. So we see at the bottom there's some overarching pieces that link back to this whole topic. If we go ahead and click into a specific lesson, we can see the resources that are more narrowly defined for that lesson.
Now I have a quick question for you. If I'm a special education or ESOL teacher and I want to assign a lesson to a student, can I do that within this account, or what do I need to do?
So I would say that your best way forward assigning a specific lesson to a student would be working with their content area teacher. Since this is a generic account, you'll be assigning the lesson to anyone who accesses this generic account. But if you have the content area teacher assign it using their click in Schoology, it will go out to the students who you're specifically working with in class.
And that sounds like a great opportunity for collaboration as well, so thank you for that.
Absolutely. And you can even assign it down to the student. It doesn't have to be whole group. It doesn't have to be whole class. So if you have a small section of the class that needs to work on one specific component, it can be assigned there.
Terrific.
That would be really great for some of our ELLs, because I know this year we have ESOL teachers co-teaching in a lot of our middle schools.
That sounds
Excellent.
like a great way to offer some differentiated lessons. So by coordinating with the social studies teacher, there's a way to really individualize some of this content for our students.
And so with that lens of kind of individualizing content, I think there's some really great features in here. One of the features that I like is the flipped video. So in pretty much every lesson and every topic, there's going to be a flipped video. They're usually under 4 minutes. A couple of them go over, but they're right on target for the student's attention span at this grade level. This one's 1:48, and it's a real quick overview, frequently with images and other things that help students understand what they're about to start learning. And they can be used to introduce a lesson. Sometimes there are people talking and it can be a little bit quick, and there is a closed captioning feature on this.
Okay, fantastic for our ELLs who need to sometimes see the words, the closed captioning. That would be great for our lower level ELLs. Also, the idea of building background vocabulary, hopefully with images prior to learning the lesson. Excellent.
Terrific. And
right.
We will say that the closed captioning does seem to be available on most of the videos, but not all. So just something to be aware. All right. So we've now switched over to another interactive gallery example of Thomas Paine's Common Sense.
Yeah, and so this one's fairly emblematic of what we see in the Pearson Realize, in the sense that you're going to get a series of images that you can click through. There's some nice little features to this. Number one, there's usually some sort of description. Number two, you can zoom in and really kind of take a deeper look at what the image is showing. This is really useful as you start working with students on skills like contextualization and inference and things like that, because you can get in there, look at the image deeply, and teach those skills all interactively on the screen.
And is this what a teacher would teach on a smartboard with, or is this what the student is actually seeing when they're logging in to their account?
Oh, you can do it both ways. I think it all depends on the context of the lesson and what you're trying to do with that lesson.
Okay.
So if it's a quick overview and there was some instruction that came before this, this might be part of a flipped lesson where they get to do this for homework before they come in, take a look at these images, write up a quick little provisional write. Or it can be done directly on the smartboard. If you're teaching students how to get in there and work with images and understand how images tell a story, that might be a whole group activity.
So I'm going to jump in with the accessibility moment here. For individuals with visual impairments, you did see that we can zoom in on the picture, but by using the built-in Chrome magnification where you hold Control and plus, or you scroll with the scroll wheel, you can make the content larger, which for some students can be very helpful. And if you do have students that do need text-to-speech, let's see if we can zoom out here a little bit. If they use Read and Write for Google to bring up the toolbar, and this is for our students with special needs who have signed up for Read and Write for Google through their special education teacher, I can use hover speech, and I can hold the mouse over the content. And let's see, hopefully it will read aloud. And in this instance, it is not. So a couple of things I'm going to do here to troubleshoot is I'm going to refresh the page first of all and see if that fixes it. And I will say for Pearson Realize, it seems about 80 to 95% of the content does seem to work with Read and Write for Google, but there are some things that might not. So if the student really relies on that text-to-speech to access the curriculum, it might be a good thing to test it out or to be aware that sometimes it might be a little squirrely. So I'm going to try that one more time. I'm going to click on the purple puzzle piece, and I'm going to wait for that toolbar to open up. Here it is. I'm going to select the hover speech, and I'm going to hold the mouse over it. And yes, this time it is reading. So if you do find that it's being a little temperamental, refresh is a magical solution.
So I have a question for you, Aaron. So for our ELLs that can only really sign up for that free account for Read and Write, will this still work for them?
That's a great question, and yes, it will. So their toolbar is going to be mostly grayed out, but the hover speech button is going to work. And so that hover speech button, they can just hold, they select that, and they don't click on anything. They just hold the mouse over the text they want read aloud, and it sometimes can take a few seconds, but it will then read aloud to them. And again, if it's not working right, the first thing to do is refresh that page, and hopefully it will work. But this e-reader web browser that Pearson uses can sometimes be a little tricky with some of our external software.
Excellent, thank you.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about edible presentations.
All right, so a really nice feature of the Pearson Realize American History textbook is that they have these editable presentations. So sometimes when we purchase content, presentations are locked down in a PDF format. These can actually be downloaded as a PowerPoint. You can edit them directly on your desktop and kind of make them your own. I think it also provides a nice opportunity to discuss what the lesson's going to look like, the flow of the lesson, how we're going to bring different groups in. And again, just simple things like using images with our students and kind of giving them different ways to interact with the content.
Brian, so I can see when you're co-teaching and you're co-planning that lesson as an ESOL teacher and a Gen Ed social studies teacher, how you could actually go through this presentation, select who's presenting what content, and then also have those discussions. Like I just saw key terms, right? So then how are we going to pre-teach that vocabulary? What images can we insert?
Right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like a terrific tool for collaborative co-teaching. Well, now we're going to take a quick look at the assessment process for students using Pearson Realize Social Studies.
All right, so on this particular topic and this particular lesson, you have a couple of different assessment options. You have the topic test, and then you have the overarching test bank. The test bank should contain all of the different assessment pieces from the whole lesson, whereas the topic test will be kind of like more like a summative assessment. So when you go into the summative assessment, go ahead and click on topic test.
Okay.
Yep. You can kind of peruse the questions, look through the questions as a student would be seeing the test when they are assigned it.
And I'm going to jump in with the accessibility moment here, and you can select the text and have it read aloud. So there is a text-to-speech within the online assessment component.
All right. There might be a number of different stimuli, including maps, political cartoons, primary source documents that students will see in these also. Just a real quick plug, there are a number of ways to assess students. You can customize these assessments, and we also have all of the Pearson test banks built into our Schoology group to transfer to your own course if you have one.
So it sounds like if I'm an ESOL or a special education teacher, I really need to be coordinating with my social studies teacher if we're really looking at differentiating these different types of tests. Is that an accurate statement?
Absolutely. One of the nice things, though, is that tests can be assigned individually in this, so they don't have to be assigned whole group. So working with those test banks and things like that, there really are a lot of opportunities to differentiate within this curriculum for students.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, so we're now going to talk about the American History e-text, and you find that by using this tab here, selecting it, and then it's going to direct you to a separate tab where it is going to open up the actual e-book. And would you like to go over some of the main features, Brian, that you like about the ebook?
Yeah, so there are some nice things in the ebook. Number one, it calls out the essential question. It puts the enduring understandings up front and kind of front loads some of those things for students. It does really carefully replicate the experience they have in a textbook. So if you're working with a student who really needs to use this digital version, they are getting this similar experience that you would have with the text. It's actually an enhanced experience because in the textbook itself, they don't have videos. But then here within the book, there's also frequently videos put in to help really explain that concept or give real life examples of that concept.
And I want to highlight that there is a text-to-speech button at the top of each page. And if you select that,
1. The Early Americas. Objectives.
It will actually read aloud with a human reader, but it does not highlight. And one downside is that you can't select targeted text for it to read. It starts from top and just goes straight to bottom. Some other things to notice is that you can use Read and Write for Google here to provide text-to-speech with highlighting. It's going to select the purple puzzle piece, and I can use the hover speech button to have it read with highlighting. I will say that the Read and Write toolpad for using the definitions, the picture definitions, or the dictionary do not work within the Pearson Reader browser. So only the text-to-speech will work at this time. You'll also notice that using the Pearson text-to-speech browser, you do have the ability to annotate some of the text, which we're finding very common in our social studies and ELA curriculums now. Now, if I start typing in and the student is logged in, Brian, this will then save to their account, correct?
Correct. They have to be logged into their personal account in order to save it, yes.
And tools such as speech recognition, word prediction, reading back what they wrote, using Read and Write for Google will not work within these separate browsers. And one thing that Brian mentioned earlier that I want to highlight as well is for our students who qualify for Bookshare because they have a documented reading disability or visual impairment, the ebooks there also do not have all those wonderful hyperlinks and videos and things that are in this embedded version through Pearson Reader. So if the videos and some of these accessibility features within the reader are what the student needs, it might actually be a better choice than using the downloaded version through Bookshare. So it really depends on the needs of the student and what features that you're really trying to match to that student.
Awesome. So Aaron, this book is available anywhere the student can access Schoology. So we have students that take it on the road with them when they leave for athletics or events or things like that. It is always available, always accessible, and some of the features we spoke about earlier, as you saw them in the context of the materials before, they are also in the context of the book. So that's really nice to just know exactly where they go.
Wonderful.
All right, so one of the last things that we wanted to share with you is if you go to your top right corner and click the little menu button, you're going to get a list of drop down of tools that might benefit your ELLs and your special education students. For example, if you click on annotations and highlights, okay, then we'll have an opportunity to see different things highlighted and different annotations. You can sort it by date or style. You could sort by color, depending upon how you or your student use those highlights. There's also an opportunity to look at the glossary, which might be helpful for some of your
I want to jump in right here. I like that you can export your highlights. I think that's valuable. So you could export them, and then maybe import them into Google Docs or Microsoft Word and do more with them later. So I think that's a great feature.
Yeah, especially for exporting them into a Google Docs. For those of us that don't have the full read-write version, we then could get pictures and we could get definitions. So let's have a look at the glossary. Okay, also for our students that are struggling with their cognitive academic language proficiency or those academic words, having them in the glossary and being clickable, where you can actually read the definition that goes with some of our terms side by side where you see the terms.
Now I'm seeing that I have the ability to copy. Do you know, does that work? Will that go into then Google Docs if I'm creating a vocabulary list for myself?
Let's give it a go.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go open up Docs and see what happens. So the answer to the question for copying and pasting is yes, you can paste the definition into a Google Doc. Awesome. But what you do need to do is you will need to, or the student will need to, write in the actual word that they're defining. That is not copy and pastable. So that answers that question. So this concludes our really fast and brief overview of some of the accessibility features and things that special ed teachers or ESOL teachers should know about the new social studies curriculum for grades 7-8. And Brian, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us before we leave?
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for supporting our students and the success of all students in the social studies. And we have a number of different tools that are available for teachers who want to take it to the next level in their co-teaching and co-planning. So I think Aaron will put this Google site in the notes, which contains scope and sequence, pacing guides, online access, supplementary materials for the social studies, many of which are absolutely wonderful for working with students with special needs or who are ELLs, including our Core 6 strategies, our common rubrics, historical thinking questions. The possibilities are pretty much endless when it comes to all of the resources on this site. So I encourage.
Do we need a login for this, or can any teacher access this?
Anyone who is a DoDEA teacher can access this as long as they are logged into their student.dodea account. And it is not secure because there are no answers. It's all authentic assessment. And so really representing the instructional shifts that we're bringing to fruition in our social studies classroom.
Super. Thank you.
Well, this is great. Angelica, are there any things that you would like to say before we leave for the day?
No, I just thank you so much for taking time today. If you have questions, you can contact your social studies ISS or ESOL teachers. Feel free to contact me.
All right. Well, this was very informative. I know I learned a lot. Thank you both for your time.